and read Hans Christian Andersen and all these like English literature, and I hated it. I hated her. I just wanted to go outside and play. I loved her, but I kind of hated her. She used to give me beatings, and I used to be sitting in my room like, this has got to be child abuse. This is like, she used to really lay into me, right? And she would make me play guitar. I hated playing the guitar because I thought that was like girly, right? But you'll see, like, if you listen to the invitation for this, that played a big part in me discovering this. So I remember one day I did so bad in school that my mother gave me another one of her famous beatings, and to make her feel better, because she threw the belt down and ran out in front of the yard and started crying, right? And I'm feeling bad at seeing her cry, so I come outside and I'm like, Ma, you know, when I grow up I'll be an engineer. And her and my father surrounded me. They surrounded me, and they just held my life for ransom, and they forced me to be an engineer. So that's how I became but I never wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be like a James Bond kind of character, because I wanted to get girls, right? And I went to school for engineering. There were no pretty girls in engineering, none, right? So I was like, I hated this, right? So what I told myself, when I come home, I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna try to make as much money as possible, and I'm gonna try to like chase models around Manhattan, right? And I kind of did, right? I did as best as I can. So I come home, and it's in the golden age of hip hop music. I'm 55 years old now, so it's right in the hip hop era. I'm chasing Puffy back and forth to like Justin's restaurant every Tuesday, and when Puffy and Jennifer Lopez got in trouble, like remember when Lizzie Grubman ran those people over in the Hamptons? I was at that party. I was just pulling up at that party. Like I was chasing, because I couldn't take Puffy every time on TV, and talking about how much money he made, and I was like, I studied the hardest major in Northeastern. How am I not making the most money, right? Because at Northeastern we used to talk about the athletes like they were stupid. And so when I got home and this is happening, I was like, I would go out to industry parties, and the girls would just like, I'd be wearing a suit and tie, trying to, okay, girls gonna like me now because I got a Ralph Lauren suit and tie, and they'd be like, shut up. And they'd be like, I want to talk to the guy with the do-rag on, right? So I was like going crazy, right? So my friends at the time, and this is in the book, my friends at the time went to Harvard and Yale. His name was Mark Prasad, right? And I call him the Tybals in the book, right? And he was like we looked up to Mark like he was a god, right? He would read the Wall Street Journal when we'd be outside having water balloon fights every day, right? And I used to look at Mark through the glass and be like, why is he reading the Wall Street Journal, right? And he went to Harvard, right? And then he came home, and then he went to Yale. I was like, you're going back to school again, right? And he went to, so when he comes, after he finishes this, we're in the den, because his father was a psychologist, and his father would let us hang out in the den so that we wouldn't get in trouble, be up on the block. And I was one of the knuckleheads that be up on the block trying to fight. Like, what are you doing? I was kind of a bad kid. So Mark, we're sitting in the den, and Quincy Jones calls Mark and gives him the CEO job of Quest Records, right? So now Mark is famous, right? And he pledges Kappa. So now he puts Kappa, that fraternity, in an Ivy League category. It was him, right? This guy who I used to look up to, right? And his twin brothers. If you ever watch, remember when Puffy ran the marathon? Is anybody old enough to remember that?
I'm old enough, but I don't remember it.
The two twins on either side of him were Mark's little brothers, Mike and Irwin. Right? Just to let you know, these guys, so they created this whole like black college educated parties that they would do, and all of the fraternity people, you would see Larry Fishburne there, right? So I'm working as a nerdy sales, I come home and I look in the newspaper, Inspired by Money, and I see that the highest paying jobs are not for the engineers. After I suffered through this, right, to please my mom, the highest paying jobs are for the salespeople. I'm like, screw engineering. I never wanted to do that anyway. I'm going to be a sales guy, right? So I get a job as a sales engineer. And I'm like kind of the best of both worlds, like this Russian kid and this other kid, Peter Andrews. He was incredibly tough. They played football at Rutgers, but they were engineers, right? And we're selling technology to companies like Condé Nast and ITG and all these financial companies, because the sales guys bring us along to sell their computer systems, right? It's an amazing job. I'm making more money than I ever thought I could have in my life. I won a trip to Monte Carlo. going to Monte Carlo, right? And I'm like out in Monte Carlo, you know, like this, and I brought my wife. I was so happy because she was soaking it all up, and I felt like I was moving in the right direction, right? But I'm still disgusted because rappers and athletes are making hundreds of millions of dollars, and I don't know how to compete with them. And this is very common. And the reason I'm belaboring this is because a lot of young kids experiencing the same thing, right? I didn't know what I'm about to tell you. So I'm going through this, and every dime I'm getting, I'm spending it trying to keep up with rappers and athletes unsuccessfully, right? Spending every dime. Wherever, if they're going to LA, I'm going to LA too, right? And then somehow, Mark, because Mark is now, you know, a celebrity himself. Like the party that Biggie Smalls was murdered at was Mark's party. That's how big these guys were. Like they introduced me to like actors like Laz Alonso and Mekhi Phifer and all of those black celebrities. I knew on the fringes of them because I was fortunate enough to go to high school with these kids, right? So they are the ones that tell me that hanging out with the celebrities, I find out about something called a disruptive innovation. Has anybody ever heard that term?
Yeah.
I talked to you guys about it earlier, right? A disruptive innovation does exactly what the name denounced or suggests. It's mnemonic. It disrupts an industry. It's the most feared technology in the entire world. Disruptive innovation comes out, it destroys an entire industry and rebuilds a whole new industry in its place, making the creator of the disruptor a billionaire and a trillionaire, right? And before I go on, I just want to say that right before I was going to graduate, because after a while I was playing knucklehead in Northeastern, and they're like, Bintell, you're old now. What are you still doing here, right? The young guys started calling me old man, and I'm embarrassed. So I'm like, I got to get out of here, right? So I take this African American Studies class, thinking it's going to be an easy A, with a professor named Professor White. He was like a black man from Chicago. He would wear straw hats, and he would sit like, he would call me Bintell, right? And he would sit like, he was, you could tell he hung out with gangsters, but he was freakishly intelligent, right? And he would make the whole class read to show us that you guys are in college and none of y'all can read. He'd make us read Toni Morrison's book out loud, right? And there was a class full of black kids, and the only kid in the class that could read was this little rich light-skinned girl who lived on Gainsborough Street with all the rich people. She would read and make us all look stupid. I was like, I hate her, right? So he said something that changed my life, and he's responsible for these two books. He said that one thing which inspired my first book, he talked about colorism. Does everybody know what colorism is?
Yeah.
Colorism is the cousin of racism. And he said that this was shocking to me because as a black kid in Jamaica, Jamaican people have struggled with colorism, right? And I used to deal with it all the time, right? So he said that many people who've studied the black experience have come to the conclusion, and I don't mean to hurt your feelings saying this, but this is what he told me, that the black community is separated into two separate races, which was shocking to me. I was like, the whole class was like, what? The whole class was like, nah, man. He was like, people, and he identified what a race is. And he said, and I forget it, this was 30 years ago, and I still remember, he said, a race of people are defined as a group of people that share like physical characteristics, that usually marry together, that socialize together, exchange information, ideas, and resources together, and the only time they break away from those behaviors is if somebody comes along that's not in that phenotype that has that, and where they have something to gain. And I was like, whoa. I was like, the more I went through my mind, the more and the guys who I went to school with, we were all supposed to pledge Kappa, right? And I didn't pledge Kappa because I had dreads at that time. I'm bald now, but I had, and the guys they were making fun of my hair, and I was like, what? And I went to fight, and I just walked out. Big mistake. I should have pledged because they became superstars because of those relationships, right? But I was the guy who didn't pledge. So that inspired my first book, Betrayed, right? And they say that this issue of colorism is the thing that hurts the black community the most. It's the most painful phenomena in the black community. It was invented by a slave consultant named Willie Lynch, right? So me being a dark-skinned Jamaican kid and my mom being kind of light-skinned and having to defend me because of this to some of my aunts and uncles would be like, Bintell, like, when I was little, I looked more like a little lighter-skinned Dominican kid, right? But when my genetics took over and I got dark, the whole family was like, Bintell, get black, and it was a big deal, and I was like, you know, it was whatever. It was a source of pain for me. So when Professor White said that to me in college, and everybody else was like, no, and fight, and he was like, what you talking about? I'm telling you, this is something I know. I just sat quietly like, yo, he's right, right? And it shot. And then he said, that semester, he went and taught at Harvard the semester prior. And he came back to Northeastern angry. And he said the only difference between the education at Northeastern and the education at Harvard was that at Harvard they tell you when you graduate and you become the CEO of American Express, and at Northeastern they tell you when you graduate and you get a job at American Express. He said that, right? And that was upsetting to me because the whole pride of my family was on my shoulders. They sending me to Northeastern, and right, so I've had Jamaican guilt. I wanted to come home and save my family financially. That's always been my agenda, right? So when he said that, I took it personal. And then to come home and to see that I'm being shortchanged by rappers and athletes, and it was just infuriating to me. So that brings me to the discovery that I told you folks about. So I'm just like your students, running around thinking rappers and athletes are making all this money. Puffy's a billionaire. They're not billionaires. Let me just tell you, right? First of all, they are not billionaires. They don't have the valuations to be a billionaire. Jay-Z and Beyonce maybe together have a combined total wealth of $400 million, maybe more, but they're not billionaires, all right? What I found out was that, and I used to do these work study programs for co-op money, right? And I would be in the lab at the bottom of Northeastern, working on some molecular thing where they're shooting, you know, molecules through some machine. I didn't know what it was. I was just like, give me $200 every week so I can go get food. I don't have to steal from store 24, right? And I would see that the experiment would be in concert with Northeastern, MIT, and Harvard. So the reason I'm telling you this is that I know Northeastern knows this. I know Northeastern purposefully kept this a secret from all of its engineers. And the secret is a disruptive innovation. A disruptive innovation is the North Star of all technology. All CEOs sit in their office terrified that some young kid, and they only teach them at the Ivy League schools. At the Ivy League schools, they indoctrinate the kids and say, no matter how much money a company offers you, don't take the job unless you have plans to disrupt the industry it's in. It's a thing. That's how they talk to them at Harvard, and right at Northeastern. Does anybody remember Napster? Remember that? A guy named Sean Fanning, who went to Northeastern, is the inventor of Napster. Right? Northeastern doesn't talk about it; they keep that a secret. In the movie The Social Network, they say he went to some Ivy League school. They didn't want to say he went to Northeastern. Right? So what I found out, I don't mean to drag this out, but I want to give context. What I found out is that Northeastern purposefully gave me the tools to make a disruptor, tested me on it, but they just didn't tell me what it was and how to put all these tools together to make a disruptor. They reared me to be a technician to work for that very small group of engineers that go to these Ivy League schools. How does that sit with you folks? I mean, that's infuriating to me that my mother sent me to school on unemployment checks, right? I'm starving, trying to get through, and do they teach surgeons to give you half of an open heart surgery? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's very unfair, right? So when I finally figured all this out and figured out that they had me running around on a hamster, chasing rappers and athletes from New York to LA, I was very upset. I felt like Malcolm X, like I've been bamboozled, right? Right? And that's the impetus behind this book. So what you see here, can't really see it as clearly as I'd like you to see it, but so engineers are the ones that make these things, right? And the reason why they, like when you saw the whole blow up with TikTok, that's because if you look at that guy's school, if you look on his website, it says teaching disruption since 1865. The CEO of TikTok, the school that he went to, they teach disruption better than Harvard and Yale and all these other schools. That's why they want him gone. Because he's disrupting the disruptors. CEOs sit in their office terrified that some kid is going to come up with an idea for a disruptor and destroy their industry, right? Now, for black children and for anybody, I mean, how does this sit with you, regardless of color? Is this is kind of not nice, right? It's not nice, right? And I mean, as principal and educators, you know, black children are going through exactly what I went through. It's exactly what's happening, right? So, and the only way, well, another thing, the mathematical definition of a ghetto is if less than 60% of people in any community don't own the businesses in that community, that is the economic mathematical definition of a ghetto. Whether it's Jewish or Irish or Dutch or whatever, that's a ghetto, right? The word ghetto has been synonymous with color, but it has nothing to do with color. It has everything to do with the people who are, because it's literally like the blood of the community is leaking out, like you're bleeding out, right? So if you don't find a way to inspire black and brown children to see academics as the lead weapon in their arsenal of making money, they will forever be misled, just like I was. The only reason I figured this out was because I happened to have friends who went to an Ivy League school, and they told me, I would have never, none of my friends know this. None of them. The ones that were more smarter than me or got better grades than me, they have no idea what a disruptive innovation is, right? So when I go into the schools and tell the kids this, they'll walk through a brick wall, right, to do it, to do whatever. They'll do whatever I say. You know that movie with Cuban Gooding Jr. and Tom Cruise, like, show me the money, you know what I'm saying? So we go into the schools and we tell the kids we're teaching them to make a money machine, right? And so these tools that I have here that you can't really see, but are in the book, are the hemispheres of engineering and entrepreneurship, and it's regardless of any product type. Which is, so what I'm saying is that my theory, my thesis is that all companies, no matter what the company is, are made of only two parts. The part that engineers the product and the part that sells it. All the other jobs in between are there to help the engineers engineer more and help the salespeople sell more. Whether it's Morgan Stanley, Walmart, Target, Dear Friends Books, that's what we're here to do. Facebook, innovate and sell, right? Now another thing, the only way you can undo that is if you have a very acute and academic understanding of something called value, right? The value, Warren Buffett, the greatest value investor in the history of the stock market, right? How is he going to know what value is if nobody how is he going to know how to invest in something, be a value investor, if nobody tells you what value is? How is that going to, it's not. It's not. The only reason I found out is because the salespeople are the henchmen for these technology companies, right? I'm their hitman. I'm their so they tell me, Bintell, we're AT&T, and we don't like Sprint. So you take this value proposition and you go attack all of their customers, and in 3 quarters, I don't want to see any AT&T customers in Brooklyn, right? And the way we do that is through an understanding of value. Terms like value add, value proposition, fair market value, stock valuations. Does anybody know what value is? And I'm not trying to be rude now. I just want to try to really get you folks to understand that unless you know what value is, you might guess, or you might see other people delivering value and you say, no, I'm just going to copy them. But how are you going to be able to see value like Steve Jobs and know that people need an iPod? And I'm going to invent one and I'm going to make a few $1 billion. How are you going to know if you don't know what value is, right? And in the black community, I'm going to tell you, value is a product's ability to protect the world from pain. Pain. In the sales world, they call them pain points, right? I can tell you as a little knucklehead black boy, dark-skinned black boy, right? My entire life, I thought my value, the way I would get girls, was in my ability to inflict pain on people. Bintell's gonna come to the party, he's gonna start a fight, right? Some girl's gonna think it's cute, and he's gonna have a girlfriend, right? And that's, when you see like little black boys carrying on, it works. It works like a formula. That never not worked for me. Like I would literally be in college and I'd be like, I haven't had a girlfriend in a little while. And I would literally in my mind say, I'll just start a fight at the next party. And some silly girl would be like, Bintell, you stupid. And before you know it, she's my girlfriend. Right? So it works. And you're never, so the kids, their sexuality is tied up in their ability to, but when you tell them that your ability to make money is predicated on you doing the exact opposite, it stops them in their tracks. Because I can tell you, if you call those guys the Prasads and ask them about me right now, they'll be like, yeah, Bintell was that guy, don't invite him to the party. Bintell is that guy, like, don't invite Bintell. He's going to start a fight. Right? Because that was my value proposition. Right? And all the schools from New York to LA, they're dealing with the same thing. Right? So I'm going to tell you what value is. And in the world, there's only 4 of them. They call them pain points. Every product on earth, its value can be quantified based on its ability to protect the world from pain. This young lady we met in the park the other day, right? And she was drawing my dog. She's an artist. My mom was an artist, right? And I have a definition for art that I'd like to share with you guys. So my mom was an impressionist painter. Thanks, brother. Thanks for coming, man. My mom was an impressionist painter, right? I used to see her go to the Art Students League, and she would create these incredible oil paintings, and I would just sit there stunned, like, oh my God, like, it was shocking to see her do that, right? Value is in a product's ability to protect the world from these 4 things. You can't see them, but I'm going to tell you what they are, and they're in the book. There's only 4 of them. If you go to any company and starts talking like this to a sales manager, they're either going to hire you or they're not going to hire you because they're scared of you. And because I was their henchman. Again, I want to say that, right? Every product is designed to cure emotional pain. Emotional pain is the worst one. People spend the quickest when they're in emotional pain. When I was in emotional pain that I couldn't get a pretty girlfriend because I wasn't a rapper and athlete, I would spend every dime I had quickly on anything that would help me to level up with rap. I had Cartier watches and Range Rovers. I bought all this stuff. Spent every dime I had because I was like, I refuse to let these guys masquerade themselves as more valuable than me. Could I afford all that? Could I afford a Range Rover? Of course not. Of course I couldn't. It broke down. It sucked all my money out. But when I went to Puffy's party and these 4 Arabian guys came flying past in a Range Rover, I was like, I'm getting that car too, right? Because I knew that I needed to encapsulate myself in that much perceived value to get girls to take me serious. I was emotional, and I spent everything, right? So emotional pain is the worst one. The next one here is physical pain. All right, doctors take care of physical pain. Oh, and one pain can cause another. They're all linked. That look on your face, it's an appropriate look on your face. Take this serious, right? The last 2 at the bottom are called losses of time, it's a clock here, and losses of energy. These are called efficiency. That's what they call them in the technology world.
Deficiency or efficiency?
Efficiency.
Okay.
Anything that makes us do things in less time and less energy, like a car, social media. Technology makes us more efficient. Technology moves society forward, right? These are where the engineers reside. This is how you get your company on the NASDAQ. And this is where, and so all of these, if you think about it right now, if you stop and just think about it and look at every product that's in here, including you, your product with a fair market value, you can figure out exactly why you're paying a fair market value for that jacket, that cool jacket. I was going to wear a jacket like that today. I chose not to. Right, that jacket, the sneakers, those shoes, right? The glass, everything. My little pink shirt here, I'm trying to pass myself off as preppy to you. All of this stuff has a quantifiable value that fits into these 4 quadrants. In the world of engineering, they call it a matrix. All right? This alone, if you teach poor kids this alone, or anybody, if you know what your value is and you can quantify it, it's impossible for you, one, to walk into an interview and somebody get you to agree to a job that's less than you deserve. Because you can mathematically quantify why you deserve $180,000 a year. You can understand why a stock has a certain valuation. You can walk around and start $5, $20. You can figure out why based on its ability to protect us from these 4 things. And it's as simple as that. It doesn't get any, and they train salespeople on this. I went to hundreds of sales training classes, and all of them are just designed to get you, as a salesperson, to walk into a customer's office, right? I'm trying to do this now to you ladies, and show you, look at all the pain you're in. Look at all the police you have to have chasing kids through the street. Look at all, and quantify that in dollars. Now, if you're in $180,000 worth of pain every year in your school or in your institution, and if I can show you that my $20,000 product can cure that, well, that's called a return on investment. And I make a good case as to why you need to give me $20,000. And that's why salespeople make more money than all other professionals combined. Even if you study quantum physics, the further you move up in that company, you're going to become a salesman. So if our kids and our people can understand, can walk around and say, they're in pain right there. I know they're in pain, and I'm going to create a product to cure it, and I'm going to present it to them, and they're going to buy it, right? That's entrepreneurship. That's entrepreneurship. Not only can you quantify value in other products, you can quantify value in yourself, and you can start adding value to your community. Because if you don't do that, you're going to have to work for somebody else that can. And they're going to give you just enough money to go to work and come back every day. And there's nothing you can do about it because you can't, it's 3 steps. First, you have to be able to identify value. You have to be able to see it. There's a difference between a discovery and an invention, and those are the 3 steps. The scientists discover, the engineers create, and the salespeople sell, right? So these are like my toolkit that I've created. Right? So after years of doing this, it's sort of just like regurgitated out of me. Right? And then this one is really cool. I would love to share. It's called a logic statement. Right? And this is what people use to create anything. Right? Now, and it's like a nursery rhyme. It goes instead of what if. Instead of the painful way, you see the scientists discovering pain here. What if we took 2 other products and put them together and created something new, and now we have a new innovation? And so we teach kids how. So from now on, whenever you're watching TV, right? If you hear anytime you hear somebody say instead of or what if, that is the human brain coming up with an idea. That's like the human brain stepping on the gas and time to innovate. Right? Thanks, brother. It's going to come back.
It's
right?
not that difficult.
Yeah, thank you, brother. So it's called a logic statement, and when I studied at Northeastern, they would run me through like computer coding, Fortran, and Cobalt, and Pascal, right? The most famous logic statement is the if-then logic statement, right? They even teach if-then logic statements in psychology, do they not? Because all the teachers are the one who told me that when they get master's degrees, they teach the if-then logic statement in psychology. Why else would you be teaching a logic statement in psychology if you're not teaching it to reinvent yourself? That's the basis of computer coding, is the if, then, the stoplight. If red, stop. If green, go. If yellow, prepare to stop. It's the basis of the way we think. So if we can give all people, but especially kids, a logic statement that they can not only innovate, but they can reverse engineer everybody else's product, Meaning that they can take your product and they can pull it apart and figure out what you were thinking when you came up with the idea. And that brings me back, I don't mean to bore you guys, but that brings me back to what I was really talking about, like playing jazz guitar. I discovered this logic statement because I wanted to be Miles Davis, and I was playing jazz guitar, and I started trying to solo like Miles Davis, right? The essence of improvisation. And the same thought process as the logic statement was the same thought process I would have to go through whenever I wanted to come up with a new lick, like a new ba-ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba. And I was like, oh my God, it's the same thing. And that's where I discovered this. So had I not, and the only reason my mother used to give me beatings to play guitar. I used to sit on my back and like strum the guitar, and she would leave me alone, and then I would put the guitar down and go outside and play, right? So when I went to we fought on this for years. When I went to Northeastern and saw pretty girls hanging out in jazz bars like Wally's with guys playing the guitar better than I could speak, who happened to be white, I was like, this is my people's music and I can't play the guitar like them? Forgive me, I love everyone, right? I was like, oh hell no. Oh hell no! Right? I felt like a fool all those years, my mother trying to get me to play jazz guitar. If she would have just taken me to a jazz concert, she wouldn't have had to give me all those beatings. I would have seen this, right? But it wasn't until I went to college that I saw that, and I was the nerdy guy with my engineering books in one arm and my guitar in the other. There was no way in hell I was not going to be the lead. You ever see Whiplash? You ever see that show Whiplash, that movie Whiplash? That was me in Northeastern, right? And these jazz professors like Professor Brown, like pushing me, like right on, like when I would solo, they would, and that was the first time a black man had ever encouraged me to do anything. So I was like, it's my dad, you know? So it's like a little boy wanting to do good for his father. I played until my fingers bled, and I would fall asleep and wake up again. I used to go to the Blue Note and play when I came home. I wanted to be Branford Marcellus' lead guitar player in the Tonight Show band. I wanted to do that so bad, and I was not good enough, and I had to admit that and go get a job as an engineer. So this is really cool that if I hope you folks take a look at the book. If you do that, and you just these two tools together, you can start dissecting anybody's innovation. I came up with an idea, a definition for art, right? And I told you my definition for art is that artists are important because they can take pain in life and re-engineer it into something beautiful that's timeless, right? In the rap industry, I love rap music, right? There's a lot of rap music on my Instagram page, right? Rap music instigates pain. It's not art. It's art in the fact that it's lingual and poets, right? But I'm talking about, as far as my definition for art is supposed to take pain and turn it into something beautiful that makes us happy, like a beautiful painting or a song, right? It's not supposed to instigate and stab at our pain. This is very confusing for our kids, you know? Very confusing for our children. For people get confused with this. It's artistic, but it's not. I don't think it's art. Right? And then this formula here is basically a speedometer for how fast your company makes money, right? So we're saying a money machine with an input and an output. We want to be able to track the rate of speed at which the company makes money. Now the cool part is, based on the valuation, this is called a model, right? And modeling is very important, right? Modeling is the basis of life, everything. Modeling is the answer. Model, like fashion models teach us how to dress for success, right? The Model T, the Model S, it's a very basic component of business and life, right? This model basically says that, like H2O, right? H2O is a risk-free model for the successful manufacturing of water. Right? You can be blind and you have two pieces of hydrogen and one piece of oxygen, you put them together, boom, you got water with very little risk, right? So after working as a sales engineer and losing deals and not getting deals or being successful and failing, a lot of failure, I realized that every time I was successful, there were three elements to that reaction, that financial chemical reaction. And there was always information, like me running my big mouth now, right? Some commodity, a product, commodity is defined as anything bought or sold, and you had to point that information through your commodity at certain relationships. Right? This is your target demographic.
Market, yeah.
Your target demographic, right? So what that means is that the reason why this is amazing is that now you can engineer a transaction. And based on the valuations of each component, dictates how fast or slow this thing spins around and produces capital. Which is sick for young kids. For everybody, but especially kids. You empower them. Instantly, they're like, I can do this. Right? And instantly they're like, when I show this to kids and give it a chance to show it to them completely, they will sit and fight with this this linear mathematical equation. They'll fight with it all day. They can think that they're gangsters, Crips and Bloods all day long. If I show them this, they're like, you know what? I'm not really with that Crip and Blood. I'm trying to get with this. So, peace. You know, you have to give them a more compelling argument than what they're going to get in the street. So this is applicable in a corporate context, but it's simple enough for kids to understand it. And this is my engineering toolkit. So with these 4 things, I discovered that you can make a disruptor. In any industry, nobody can stop you. You know? And the reason why my first book and my second book are connected, this is the last thing I'm going to say, I'll be quiet. Thank you guys for listening to me. I know I just wanted to get it all out because we're on camera. So thank you. Right? The reason why the book about colorism and this book are connected is because this model, right? What do you think arguably the most important element in this model is? Information, commodities. Is the information, like the marketing and advertising, most important? Is the commodity most important, the actual product? Or you are a quick study. Yes, relationships. Success in business is all about the right relationships, right? So this brings me to my final point. If the black community, based on colorism, has no relationship with itself, then it's a broken money machine. It's broken. It's just basic, it's broken. It's not, right? And that's everybody's big gripe with the black community. We don't do business with each other. It's because of colorism. So you can literally figure out why we're a broken money machine with this sort of like a universal business model. And that's why, that's my story, folks. Thank you. If I didn't get any claps, I was going to be upset. All right, thank you so much. So the book, I sell the book to like car dealerships and salespeople, right? But my wife was a teacher. My wife was a teacher. I did all of her papers, and I used to write her lesson plans, right? And she was terrified in the morning. She'd be like, I don't know what I'm teaching. She would like graduate, right? Like, I don't know what I'm gonna teach these kids, right? And I'd be like, oh, shut up, just teach them this, right? And I would tell her to do something that my managers were beating up on me to do, and that was a hit. She would be like, they loved it. She would come home and tell me they loved it, right? So I started writing her lesson plans every day, and that's how I got so caught up in the schools. And I would come to her and I would test it out on them, and that's why my focus is black children. So we tell the kids, we don't tell them engineering or any of this corny stuff like, you guys are adults and I know I was boring you, right? I was trying to get through it, right? We don't tell them any of this. We tell them we're teaching them to make a money machine. And if you tell children anything with money, they're there. But I heard somebody say that money is a mathematical representation of value. Right? I thought that was pretty. Or Warren Buffett says, value is what you get. Money is what you pay. Value is what you get. Right? So if we can just give all of our people, all people, poor people. And let me tell you, this is not just happening to the black community. This is happening to everybody who's not part of the top 1%. I don't care what color you are, right? This is not a color thing. This is an economic thing. The top 1% control 90% of the world's wealth. The rest of us are just sitting around, beating each other up, fighting over what's left over. That's another economic fact. So this is not about color, right? This is about how can we level the playing field. How can we give all people the ability to fight back, to defend yourself? Because artificial intelligence, robotics, all of the, I can tell you, when these investors start talking about we're investing billions of dollars, and it's already a foregone conclusion that this technology is designed to eliminate you. So this is already happening. They say all companies are going to become cannibalized by technology. All of us, even engineers like me. I think you think you're so smart. You came up with this, right? My neck is on the chopping block too, right? So in between, when they try to eliminate your job, you're going to have such an acute understanding of value that you can see value someplace else and reinvent yourself just that quick. That's how you can defend yourself. Because like cars, right? Cars help us to more time and energy. We don't have to walk, right? But they also cause diabetes and high blood pressure, right? So the game of value will never end. There will always be value to add. It's just that we have to teach each other how to see it, how to discover it, right? And that's why I think the value of this is. If I had something like this, if somebody would have taught me something like this, I wouldn't have a lot of these scars on my face. I wouldn't have done a lot of the stupid things I've done. I wouldn't have associated with certain people, right? I would have made completely different choices. So, thank you. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. These people